be known to many of you, all of you, I expect, for her fantastic work on introducing buffer zones to Scotland. But that's not all Jillian does for us. As Central Scotland MSP, we know that she's been working tirelessly for the workers and people of Grangemouth. We heard her just talking about that. She's a fierce advocate for carers and disabled people and has inspired a generation of young women to think that politics might just be for them. So in her first conference speech as co-leader, please join me in welcoming Jillian Mackay.
Job one done, not tripping on the way to the stage. Thanks so much, Alice, for a lovely introduction, and thanks to all of you for joining us here in Edinburgh and everybody online. I've been to lots of Green conferences in my time, and I'm proud to be addressing you for my first time as co-leader. I want to start, though, by thanking our predecessors. Patrick, thank you for everything you've done for the party over the last 20 years. I've never known a Green party without you at the helm. I hope you've been able to have a little breather and the chance to catch up on bread making, real ales, and your greatest love of all, Doctor Who. Thank you, Patrick, for all the time, effort and activism you've put into our party. You've been one of the strongest Green voices of a generation and have given us very big shoes to fill. We wouldn't be here without you. I also want to thank Lorna Slater. Lorna, you've provided bold leadership for our party and have withstood the full force of both the Tories and the media. That deserves a round of applause. You've been a much-needed voice for progressive Green change and a tireless advocate for our environment and for women. Thank you for everything you've done for our party and for everything you're continuing to do and will do in the future. I'm hugely proud to call you both colleagues and friends. Conference, an awful lot has changed since the last time we came together. There's been a lot of change for our party, but these last few months have been a big change for me too. In June, my husband Alex and I welcomed little Callan into the world. He is up the back giving you all a wave. He has, of course, kept us very busy and has brought us so much joy. And I had thought about what life would look like with the wee one. But juggling life as a new parent and a new co-leader has been hard. It's thrown up unexpected challenges and brought even more issues into focus for me. I know for so many people across this country, the reality of life as a new parent is even more challenging. Childcare costs are extortionate. Food costs are soaring, and the planet's on fire. What kind of a world will Callan grow up in? I've never felt more committed to building a fairer, greener Scotland than since he made his appearance. In other parties, there would have been a whole load of barriers to a new mum being elected to a leadership role. And it's only because of our co-leadership model and because of the support of all ordinary members like all of you that I've been afforded this opportunity. Yes, give yourself a round of applause. And I'm hugely grateful that Ross has been supporting me to spend time with the family. And I can never express how grateful I am to those at home. My husband, dad, brother and sister who have sacrificed their time to help make sure that I could participate in the contest in the first place, and that I'm here in relatively one piece, without too much baby dribble on me. I think the support I've had says something about our party and the values that we stand for. When I think about the country I want us to be, it's one where we support each other, one where we lift each other up, and one where we do things differently. It's a country where we look out for friends and neighbours and where we stand up for one another. When I think of my community, where I'm from in Grangemouth, I see that solidarity. The tireless work of community groups restoring our green spaces. The folks giving their spare time to run baby and toddler groups in my local church. People looking out for each other. I grew up seeing the power that strong, caring communities like Grangemouth have. It's this spirit and these values that drive me and everything I believe in. Grangemouth will always be a big part of me and will always be the community that made me. So I'm furious when I see workers and families being betrayed by INEOS and failed by politicians. As a child, I was kept awake by the loud roaring noises and flashing orange lights that came from the flaring at the refinery. Now those noises have been replaced by silence. And I can see the uncertainty and the anxiety hanging over the town because I feel it too. It's there in some of those little moments, the small business owners who are crossing their fingers hoping that they'll get through it without having to put their shutters up for good. The parents who are trying to provide for their children and wondering where their next paycheck will come from. Hundreds of the most skilled workers in our country have been betrayed and hung out to dry, and everyone knows someone who's been affected. You can't rip a site like that out of a town like mine without it setting off ripples that impact each and every person in it. It's the entire community that relies on those workers and have seen their hope, their livelihoods, and their well-being ripped away from them by Jim Ratcliffe, a far and remote billionaire who would rather spend time swanning around Monte Carlo than meeting with them. But conference, we've been here before. We've seen what happens when big business decides to cut and run and jobs are lost while governments wash their hands of it. There are communities all over Scotland who bear those scars. And I'm sick of governments and corporations using terms like just transition as a cheap slogan. What happened in Grangemouth is not a just transition. Our communities don't need empty words. Words don't pay the bills or put food on the table. They need real plans to provide real jobs and opportunities. That site could have been saved. Labour promised to save it. They promised £200 million, and the message from the workers is clear. Show us the money. It could have been nationalised, livelihoods could have been saved, and workers could have been put at the forefront of a genuine green industrial strategy, led by the trade unions and the community. If we're to grasp the huge renewable opportunities in front of us, then my friends and neighbours in Grangemouth need to be at the forefront of it. We cannot leave the future of our communities in the hands of billionaires who are all too happy to abandon us when the money dries up. We can't sit waiting for the same thing to happen again somewhere else. When we look to the future, it's increasingly common to feel fear rather than hope. And it's not just in Grangemouth where people feel it. It's the same story all over the country. It's the pensioners dreading a long, cold winter and wondering how they'll afford to heat their homes. It's the parents wondering how they'll make the sums add up to ensure that they can pay for childcare and put food on the table. It's the young people stuck on exploitative zero-hour contracts and wondering how they will pay their extortionate rent. Those are the people whose side I'm on. Those are the people whose voices must be heard. The super-rich don't need anyone else to speak for them. They already have multiple parties protecting them and their interests. There are millions of people across Scotland who aren't only scunnered, they're angry. They're angry at a system that's exploited them and their loved ones. They're angry that they're working harder, but prices are rising faster than their wages. They're angry that it's becoming even harder to get by while the rich are getting richer. They're angry at the governments who have promised so much and failed to deliver. They're angry to see so much misery in a country that's so wealthy. They're angry at an economy that's rigged against them. And I'm angry too. We have to be the party that mobilises that anger. We have to be the party that stands with those workers, with the trade union movement, and with the people and communities on the front line of Westminster's cruelty. We have to be the party that calls out the lies of big polluters. Drilling for new oil and gas fields like Rosebank will do nothing to lower energy bills or protect our planet. It's pure climate vandalism, and we have to stop Rosebank. We have to be the ones who are calling for climate action grounded in the skills that we have here in Scotland. We have to be the ones who prove that a fairer, greener, independent Scotland isn't just possible, it's essential. Westminster has failed Scotland. Our communities have been let down too many times. Imagine how much more we could do if we weren't stuck fixing other people's mistakes. Every day in our Parliament, we're coming up against the huge limitations of Westminster rule. Imagine what we could do with independence. With the powers of a normal country, we could do so much more to take on the polluters and put people first. We could build the type of society that works for ordinary people and leads the change. We can't let con artists and frauds like Nigel Farage and Reform turn people against each other and divide our communities. We can't leave debate in the hands of tech billionaires like Elon Musk and the hateful projects they fund, because we all know who they want us to blame. It's disabled people, it's LGBTQ people, but above all, it's refugees and migrant communities. And that's what they're doing where I live in Falkirk. We've had far-right agitators whipping up fear and surrounding hotels with banners and flags, trying to terrify and intimidate the people inside. These scenes don't reflect the Falkirk I know. They don't reflect the wonderful community that I represent or the town that I'm proud to call home. The people in these hotels have fled war and harm, often caused by decisions made by politicians here in the UK. Earlier this year, I met some of the refugees who have fled from Gaza. They'd seen their entire families killed and their homes destroyed in a grotesque genocide that the UK government has armed, supported, and enabled. I can't begin to imagine the horror they faced, only to have the UK government tell them they're not welcome. These protests have been egged on and encouraged every step of the way by politicians and commentators, shamelessly wrapping themselves in flags and trying to sow division. The Scottish Greens are proud to say that all migrants and refugees are welcome here, today, tomorrow, and always. They're our friends, our loved ones, our neighbours, and so much more. We are the party that stands with disabled people and against the shocking cuts being inflicted by a Labour government. We are the party that will protect trans rights. Trans rights are human rights and always will be. When I've been interviewed by the right-wing media, they've asked how I can support trans rights while calling myself a feminist, and my answer is simple. I don't support trans rights despite my feminism. I do it because of my feminism. We are so much stronger when we stand together. And this is what we did when we introduced my bill for buffer zones outside hospitals. I still remember the chill I felt when I first saw footage of those so-called vigils. I was horrified. What I saw was an intimidating group waving graphic banners and using megaphones in a bid to stop people from accessing healthcare. And I knew that I had to do something about it. Over the weeks and months that followed, I spoke to grassroots campaigners, medical staff, and women who'd experienced and endured these protests firsthand. I learned from all of them and their stories. and I worked with them to ensure that nobody else would have to go through what they did. But I know that we couldn't have done it without the people in this room. You're the ones who filled in the consultation, who wrote to newspapers, who shared the petition with your friends, and who built that momentum from the ground up. I'm ashamed that we ever had to bring in buffer zones in the first place, but I am so proud that we did. I'm proud that we made Scotland a better and safer country. But it wasn't just the anti-choice protesters who wanted to attack my bill and misrepresent it. You can imagine my reaction when I found out that it was also the Vice President of the United States. J.D. Vance addressed a room full of world leaders, and he lied about my bill, and he lied about Scotland. Well, Mr. Vance, this is my room. And I may just be some wee bam from Grangemouth, but I'm not going to be pushed around or lied about by someone like you. You are the Vice President of a bigoted, misogynistic, racist, and fascist White House. You represent everything that we stand against, and the exact opposite of the kind of country that we want to build. So if you're attacking me and attacking our movement, then it's a great sign that we're doing something right. Conference, I know what we as Greens can do. It was the Scottish Greens who introduced free bus travel for everyone under 22. Go on. It was the Scottish Greens who scrapped peak fares on Scotland's railways. It was the Scottish Greens who ended school meal debt and increased taxes on the richest. And it was the Scottish Greens who took on the landlord lobby to introduce rent controls. And we've done all of that with only 7 MSPs. Think of what we could do if there were 10 of us. 12 of us? 15 of us? And we've got 35 councillors across our country delivering real and tangible change in their communities. But think of what we could do with 60, 70, or even 80 of you. What we don't have is time to waste. Not when we're seeing wildfires and climate chaos on our doorsteps, and when 1 in 5 children are growing up in poverty. We stand on the verge of a historic election and a chance to elect more Green voices than ever before. When I look at our candidates all over the country, I see dedicated campaigners and activists who will put their communities first. I see people who will be bold enough to call out the shite. I see people who will take on the vested interests and the super rich. I see people who will build a fairer, greener and independent Scotland. And the more of us there are, the more we can do. If you have friends, family or neighbours who share our vision, then ask them to join us. Ask them to help us to build the biggest possible movement for people and for planet. We've already started improving the lives of millions of people, but we can and will go further. Conference, we have a Scotland to win and a green future to build. Thank you. conference. Thanks, conference. Oh, we made it. I now have the absolute pleasure to introduce my good friend, fellow co-leader, and the one currently holding the fort, the wonderful Ross Greer MSP. Smash it.
Thank you, Jillian. It is one of the privileges of being able to do this that I get to do it with one of my closest friends. And thank you, conference. Thank you to members across our party that for the first time, having joined this party as a 15-year-old more than half my life ago now, I get to address you for the first time as the co-leader of the Scottish Greens. This is... I'm particularly glad that we can have this conference in Edinburgh today, and I want to thank our Edinburgh branch for hosting us, because we're here in our capital city just a few weeks after Green councillors passed a motion for Edinburgh to join the global campaign of boycott, divestment and sanctions against the apartheid state of Israel. And we have just watched the worst moral atrocity of our age. A genocide has been gleefully inflicted on the people of Palestine, right in front of our eyes, in open view. And I am proud that it was Scottish Greens in Parliament and in council chambers across the country who have led on the campaign of solidarity with the people of Palestine. I think we can all welcome the ceasefire, but we are all going to come under, and we've seen it start to happen already, a huge amount of pressure to just forget, to just move on as if the last 2 years didn't happen. But we will never forget what has been inflicted on the people of Palestine. We will never stop pushing for justice. Most of the bombing might have stopped, but not all, and the occupation continues. The blockade of Gaza continues. Palestinians in the West Bank are still being terrorized and murdered by Israeli extremists and soldiers every day. That's why we cannot forget. That's why we cannot stop campaigning for justice. And it's why I am incredibly proud that just a few weeks ago, as well as that decision in Edinburgh, Scotland became the first country in the world, thanks to a motion proposed by Green MSPs, to join as a nation the global campaign of boycott against Israel. Our MSPs put that motion forward to Parliament not as a statement of principle, but as a call to action, because we know the Scottish Government is capable of acting on international affairs when it chooses to. 3 years ago, as soon as Russia launched its full-scale invasion of Ukraine, the Scottish Government rightly called on every business in this country to cut all links, to cease all trade with Russia. But 3 years later, and despite our First Minister recognising that what has happened in Palestine is a genocide, the government still will not call for that same action against Israel. Well, the government won't do it. But today at this conference, our party will. The Scottish Greens are calling on every business in this country to cease all trade, to stop all links with Israel until the occupation is ended, until every Palestinian can live in peace, freedom, and dignity. And it's not just in boycotting Israel that we can take action. We can play a key role in the divestment strand of that campaign as well, because sadly, there are millions, tens of millions, probably hundreds of millions of pounds in our public pension funds alone here in Scotland that are invested in the companies either arming Israel or holding up, supporting, and utterly complicit in the occupation. So our councillors, working with unions and ordinary workers across the country, can force the divestment of that money, can take hundreds of millions of pounds away from the enablers of apartheid and genocide and invest it instead in industries that build a more just and a more peaceful future. Now, the sanctions part of the campaign That's more challenging for us. Scotland is not yet an independent nation capable of sanctioning those most directly responsible. But I think our most important role in the time ahead is in ensuring that every individual who has inflicted this genocide is held to justice. And I say that because over the coming weeks and months, we will face the reality of people who went from the UK to serve in Israel's occupation forces, who have spent the last 2 years inflicting that genocide on the people of Palestine, returning here. War criminals returning to walk our streets and live in our communities. That's why the Scottish Greens are calling on our government and on the Lord Advocate to make sure that every single one of these war criminals is arrested and prosecuted, because a war crime anywhere in the world is a war crime under Scots law. We owe it to our Palestinian friends to keep fighting, to keep campaigning. And on that note, I want to thank our party's Palestine Solidarity Group and our Scots Palestinian members for the incredible moral leadership that they've shown. And I want to take a moment, I think we should all take a moment, to congratulate in particular one of the co-founders of our Palestine Solidarity Group, Adam Al-Khatib, who is a member here in Edinburgh, one of our candidates campaigning to be our first Scots Palestinian MSP. Adam, just a few weeks ago, won the Saeed Hussein Nazir Award at the Scottish Muslim Awards for services to environmentalism. He is an incredible advocate and role model for environmental activists, for young people in our party, and for young people in the Muslim community. So I think we should all congratulate Adam on his recent achievement. We're all here because we believe in peace and justice. We believe that a better world is possible, and our movement is growing. This conference sold out. Our party membership has grown in the hundreds over recent weeks. This is, in fact, our biggest conference in almost a decade, and the highest that our membership has been in that same period of time. We are far, far bigger than the Lib Dems, we're bigger than the Tories, and if Scottish Labour would actually publish their membership figures, we're pretty sure that we are now a bigger party than them as well. And I think the reason for that is pretty simple: hope. And I want you all to think about why you joined this party. Why are you here this weekend? So as I said, I joined when I was 15. I knew at that point that I was a socialist, but I joined the Scottish Greens because of the urgency of the climate and nature emergency. We have one world, one planet, and one opportunity to save it. And I don't just believe that we can tackle the climate crisis. I don't just believe that we can build a better and a fairer and a greener Scotland. I know that we can. I know that this is possible. And I refuse to give in to despair. People want hope right now. And it is us, it is the Scottish Greens who are going to bring hope back to this country's politics. And to bring hope back, we need to change the system. We've been making the point that the system might feel broken to a lot of people. If you're sitting in an A&E waiting room for 12 hours, if you can't get the care package that your parents need or the additional support that your child needs in school, something feels really broken. But the system isn't broken, it's rigged. It's rigged in favour of the rich and powerful. And that's who we're really up against. And they throw everything that they've got at us. And they do it because they're scared of us. They are scared of this party because when we fight and when we campaign, we win. We've seen that in the last couple of years with the constant onslaught against us from the landlord lobby. And they did that because Greens have delivered for renters across this country. Patrick Harvey delivered the first ever rent freeze and emergency eviction ban. And that really matters. I have friends, and I'm sure I won't be the only one in this room, I have friends who would have been homeless in 2022 or 23 at the height of inflation and the cost of living crisis if it wasn't for Patrick delivering that evictions ban. This stuff really matters to people. And the landlords didn't like it. They took us to court. They took Patrick and our government to court. But we beat them there as well. And we may not be in government anymore, but our legacy was confirmed just a few weeks ago when MSPs passed the housing bill introduced to Parliament by Patrick. And what that means is, for the first time in decades, Scotland will have a system of permanent rent controls back in this country. That was a huge victory for our party, for our members, for Living Rent and the wider tenants movement, for Shelter and for others. And what it means is less money in the pockets of landlords, or in many cases in their offshore bank accounts, more money back in the pockets of renters. But it was also about redistributing power in our society from a small number of people who had far too much because they were treating homes as assets, and giving that power to the people who needed a roof over their head. So I want to thank Patrick for delivering for renters. His title in government was the Minister for Active Travel, Tenants' Rights and Zero Carbon Buildings, but we knew him as the Minister for Bikes, Boilers and Bastard Landlords. And Lorna had an equally long title. She was responsible for biodiversity, green skills and the circular economy, which we knew as bugs, beavers and bins. But I get now the huge privilege as I travel the country as our co-leader to see the impact of Lorna's work in almost every community that I go to, in particular through the Nature Restoration Fund. Under Lorna's stewardship, that was launched here in Scotland, and we launched it because this is sadly one of the most nature-depleted countries on earth. But it's the Scottish Greens who are turning that around. We're protecting native species. We're repairing habitats. We are restoring our amazing but almost completely eradicated Atlantic rainforest. That's all fantastic, and the NRF has done a power of work, even if I was having some flashbacks when I found out that one of the projects that we were restoring was the loch that I was forced to run round at PE when I was back at school. But Lorna didn't just launch the Nature Restoration Fund. She banned single-use plastics. She stopped the extraction of coal in this country. She banned new incinerators and so much more. And I think we all owe a huge debt of thanks to Lorna and Patrick as the first ever Green ministers in this country. They were the first Green ministers, but they certainly won't be the last. And what they proved was that Greens in a few years in government can achieve more than other parties would even try to do in a decade. Having Greens in positions of power really matters. We froze rents, we prevented evictions, we made homes warmer and cheaper to heat, we expanded on and offshore wind energy, and we made sure that more of the jobs from that were actually based here in Scotland. We scrapped peak rail fares. We made the bus free for young people. We built more bike lanes and train stations. We increased climate and nature spending to almost £5 billion a year. We abolished the SQA. We cut the cost of school uniforms. We expanded free school meals. We wiped out school meal debt. We taxed the rich, and then we taxed them again. We gave councils... We gave councils new tax-raising powers so that they could do the same thing. We boosted the wages of low-wage workers. We started rolling out the 4-day working week. We defended families from the Tories and what is now Labour's cruel benefits cap. We doubled the Scottish child payment, lifted children out of poverty. That's what happens when people vote for the Scottish Greens. Everyone in this room, everyone in our party can be proud that we achieved all of that together through the strength of this movement. We've made a transformative impact on the lives of millions of people. But day after day, when we were in government, we hit the limits of what you can do under devolution. We increased taxes on the wealthy, but then Westminster cut our budget. We built a compassionate social security system, and then the DWP threw even more families into poverty and crisis. Our experience in government convinced me more than I thought would even be possible of the need for all of these decisions to be taken here in Scotland and not by Westminster. And with the prospect of Nigel Farage as Prime Minister after the next election, the need for independence has never been more urgent. Every vote. Every vote for the Scottish Greens next May will be a vote for an independent Scotland rejoining our place in the European Union. I promised during my leadership campaign that I would propose for us a refreshed strategy on how we actually achieve Scotland's independence, that I would take that to our party's council, which I'll do at its next meeting in December. But it's a simple proposition, and I'm happy to share it with you now. I think the independence movement needs to stop obsessing over process about how we achieve a referendum and spend far more of our time and energy focusing on building public support for the potential, the opportunity of independence itself. And we do that by making maximum use of those powers that we've already got, albeit limited powers, but certainly not exhausted. And we should get into those grey areas between what's devolved and what's reserved. We've already experienced that. For years, our MSPs were told that because employment law is reserved, we couldn't possibly make it a condition of Scottish Government contracts that those contractors paid their staff at least the real living wage. And then within 3 weeks of us joining the government, we just did it. And that's now exactly what has happened. And there are workers across the country who are being paid more as a direct result of that. There are other areas that we can go further in to boost wages, to improve the conditions of workers. And yes, we would be daring the UK government to step in and stop us if they really wanted to. But if a Labour government was to step in and stop us improving the lot of workers in this country, all they would be doing is proving the urgent need for Scotland to be able to take all of these decisions itself as an independent nation. We all recognise that life is not working for millions of people across the UK right now. Every day I speak to constituents who are really, really struggling, and it's not by accident or by some force of nature. Their life is made miserable by people who have much, much more power than them. It's a rigged system, not a broken one. But it doesn't have to be like this. And the Greens are the only party willing to tell the truth, not just about the problems, but about the solutions as well. It wasn't immigrants who hiked anyone's electricity bills. It wasn't asylum seekers who increased anyone's rent. Trans people did not make your weekly shopping more expensive. We're here to call bullshit on those kind of lies. Reform and their super wealthy backers want people to punch down. They want to divide us. But the Scottish Greens want to build solidarity. We believe in building a longer table, not a bigger wall. And we are the only party who are prepared to fight for the people on their side against those really causing so much suffering. Our message to the public is simple. We are on your side. We are fighting your corner. And with your help, with your support, with your vote, we can win. We know that the biggest financial hit that so many people have taken in the last couple of years is in skyrocketing energy bills. Because our energy system is rigged. It's rigged in favour of the handful of people who own the private companies who control that system. We need to break the hold that they have over energy, over our essential utilities. And we do that by putting more energy in the hands, in the control of communities and of individuals. And it's not just unaffordable energy bills that are resulting in far too many people getting locked into spiralling debt. One of the most common types of debt in this country is council tax debt, debt to the state. Because the council tax is so unfair, so outdated, and so broken, it punishes the poorest people while allowing the richest to get off with an absolute steal. And it doesn't have to be that way. Property taxes are wealth taxes. We talk about the need to tax wealth, not just work, for a reason. That's why Green MSPs are fighting to finally scrap and replace the comically outdated and the comically broken council tax, and to make the wealthiest people in the biggest properties start actually paying their fair share. And very often, the same people who are struggling with their energy bills or with their council tax are also struggling to even just get on the bus to work, because the price of a bus fare is going up, the services aren't getting any better, but the millionaires who own our privatised bus network are cashing in. And that's all while transport emissions in Scotland are going up, one of the areas in which this country is not tackling the climate emergency. Well, we delivered free bus travel for young people. And now we want to go further. We are going to bring buses back into public ownership in this country and deliver free bus travel for everyone who lives here in Scotland. I do need to be honest with you, though. The only way that we can deliver these changes is by electing more Green MSPs next May. But that is going to be the dirtiest and the most difficult election campaign in the history of the Scottish Parliament. The extremists in reform are being bankrolled by billionaires and fossil fuel interests. We are going to need more money than ever before to compete with that, to hire staff to support our branches and volunteers, to organise rallies, to produce video content that meets people where they are online, to print the newsletters and cards that we all put through letterboxes to show people that we are part of the community. But if I'm being honest, we don't yet have enough money to do that. So starting today, we are launching the biggest ever fundraising drive in this party's history. We're asking everyone who can give to give. And you can check the QR code on the first page of the conference programme to do that. If you can set up a regular gift to the party today, I would ask you to do that, because an extra few pounds a month adds up. And there are some people who are in a very privileged position who could give us more than that, potentially much more than that. And if that's you, we need you now. Your donation could make the difference between another Green MSP representing your region or a Reform MSP. We need to be in this fight. The stakes are simply far too high for us not to be. But finances are only half the battle, and our biggest strength is that we are a grassroots movement. So we need to get out on doorsteps, not just to share our vision and our ideas, but to listen to our communities, to stand alongside people who are really struggling, to make them feel heard, probably in many cases for the first time in their life. 800 new members have joined this party in the 7 or so weeks since Jillian and I took on the co-leadership. And if you are a new member or a newly active member, thank you for coming today, or thank you for joining us online. There are 200 days until polling day, 200 days until the election. So this is a great time to get involved in your local branch, to get out and campaign. I realise I've freaked a lot of our campaign organisers in the room out by pointing that out, but it shows the urgency of this. We have 200 days left in this fight between the politics of hope and hate. The clock is ticking down. And the single most persuasive person for voters in your community isn't me or Jillian, it is you. Your friends, your family, your neighbours. They want to know that someone who has a life like theirs, who has experiences like theirs, is part of this movement. You are the proof that they need that the Scottish Greens are the party standing up for them. So together, conversation by conversation, we can persuade people that this is the time to transform Scotland. We can bring back hope, and we can win. Thank you, conference.
You didn't say that. Well done. The microphone is fine.
Yeah.